Hey guys, Mystic Aiden here. Pokemon has introduced a lot of design-altering gimmicks over the years. Megas, Gigantamax, regional variants, all awesome, but none are topping the sheer creativity of Paradox Pokemon. The idea of taking Pokemon we know and love but then remixing them to either be from the ancient past or far out future is probably the coolest concept introduced to the series since Ultra Beast, I guess? To show both my love and distaste for these anomalies, I've taken it upon myself to rank every single Paradox Pokemon D tier. Coming in dead last is Iron Jugulis, who is just such a missed opportunity, man. The original Hydreigon was based on multi-headed dragons combined with military tanks. So for its Paradox form, it's just metal with detached arms. What a waste, man. Coming barely above last is Iron Boulder, the future Paradox form of Terrakion. In all honesty, Terrakion has always been my favorite of the Swords of Justice, but this design just doesn't do much different with it. The spheres are interesting in concept, but the facial expression just makes him look uncomfortable. Like, why does he look like that? Somebody please get this man like a massage. Speaking of things that make me severely uncomfortable, gouging fire. I like the direction they were going with the whole Triceratops shield, but green was just not it, man. They really should have stuck with the red. It just kind of looks painted on and it really kills the design for me. At 20th place, we have Iron Moth. A solar panel UFO Volcarona could have been great, but this just feels way too similar to the original. Also, it really doesn't look like a poison type. I don't know, but maybe that's just me. C tier. For our first C-tier choice, Iron Leaves. I appreciate how they tried to lean into the sharpness compared to the original Virizia's more rounded leaves, but it really doesn't stick out more beyond that. At 17th is Iron Treads, which just makes me feel bad for Violet players. You get one Paradox Pokemon you can get before the post-game, and you get this. I think the idea of the treads wrapping around the body is really interesting, but the screen face just saps any personality away from what this could have been. At the very top of, well, C tier is Brute Bonnet. Giving a plant reptile features is a really interesting concept, like you added 4 legs and a tail to a mushroom. Problem is, he's so stubby, so you barely even notice any of the design changes outside of its big green drapes unless you look very, very closely. B tier. Starting off B tier, we have Iron Crown. I feel bad for putting all 3 future Swords of Justice so low, but at least one of them looks decent. The overall design is a little too similar to Cobalion, but the details all over its metal plating give it a real sense of depth a bunch of the other future Pokemon lack. 14th place goes to Iron Hands. I didn't ever expect Hariyama of all Pokemon to get a variant, but unfortunately, it's just okay. Keeping its whole pushing gimmick by making the hands float is a really creative spin on the original design, but the rest of the body really does just feel like a recolor. Iron Thorns comes so close to being good. Tyranitar's a Godzilla reference, so of course in the future there will be his mecha counterpart. Problem is, its Scarlet Pokedex entry makes it sound really passive. I'm fine with the stat total being lower, because obviously Godzilla beats Mecha Godzilla, but they really should have amped up his evil factor more. Walking Wig takes 12th place, but it really could have been higher. Making Suicune a raptor is a really unique twist on the original, but it's an absolute shame they made it raid event exclusive. Also, the mane on the design looks so big that it almost comes off as more awkward than intimidating. Well, we're officially at the halfway mark, featuring Fluttermane. Taking the Banshee influence to its extreme is awesome, but from a distance it also just kind of looks like, well, Big Mr. Avis. Also, who in the world designed this stat spread? And to top off B tier, we have Iron Bundle. Picking Delibird of all Pokemon to give a new form was a really out of left field choice, but turning its bag into a cannon is a really cool way to spice up the original concept. A tier. From one weird choice to another, Sandy Shocks takes the bottom slot of A tier. Originally, I had this guy a lot lower than A tier, but the more I think about it, the more I kind of love it. Making prehistoric magnets out of iron sand, which is a real thing apparently, that move around and stretch makes it look so goofy, but in all the best ways. And now for the moment you've all been waiting for, Miraidon is in 8th. The idea of a motorcycle lizard actually being able to roll around looks amazing in motion. Electro Drift is also such an awesome signature move name. But in all honesty, I like Miraidon a lot more. While the mechanical elements of Miraidon make more sense with the actual game's movement, Having the wings be biological is so much cooler looking. Hearing his footsteps while running is also so satisfying. So of course Koraidon was always on a collision course for 7th place. Unfortunately, both Cyclizar variants are held out from being at the top of A tier by their greatest weakness, a fairy Pokemon. I'm genuinely surprised it took so long for Jigglypuff to get a variant, but Screamtail really lives up to the legacy. It's certainly no powerhouse in actual battles, but making the Puff completely feral is a hilarious twist on its original, sweeter demeanor. It's also absolutely rocking that haircut. S tier. Starting off S tier is Slitherwing. Imagine getting absolutely pummeled by a Volcarona standing upright on the ground. Truly a beautiful yet oh so frightening way to die. He's silly, but in like a very threatening way, and I kind of love it. In a pretty much unsurprising twist, Iron Valiant takes 4th place overall. And if you've been keeping track, that is the highest placing future variant on this entire list. Taking aspects of Mega Gardevoir and Mega Gallade and fusing them into some cyborg menace is definitely the most interesting use of the futuristic concept overall. It's a mashup with terrifying implications that really make it stand out in a sea of thing but robot Pokemon. If you've been keeping track, we're finally down to the final 3 Pokemon. If you'd like to make your guesses on my picks, put them in the comments right now. With predictions out of the way, the bronze medal is going to Great Tusk. This titan of an elephant is a proper example for what makes a great past Paradox Pokemon. So they took a more passive herbivore and then gave it teeth and tusks fit for combat. Then dial up its ferociousness and amount of spikes way past 11. And using the red even calls back to Phanpy's little red bits on its trunk, which is a really good touch. It was so good, in fact, that when they revealed it before the game even came out, I was completely convinced it was an evolution and immediately locked it onto my team before I even knew what a Paradox Pokemon was. While I don't think most of you are going to agree with me, I feel like 2nd place absolutely deserves to go to Raging Bolt. Okay, maybe I'm a little bit biased because Raikou is one of my favorite legendaries. But when they first revealed Suicune, I knew the Raikou one was going to be amazing. Though at first, being completely honest, I really didn't like it at all, but the more I look at Raging Volt, the more I love it. Somehow it went from being on the very bottom of this list to thunderclapping its way all the way to the top. No other Pokemon on this list is even coming close to beating Roaring Moon, though. While I love a lot of the Paradox Pokemon, none of them even come close to Roaring Moon. I'm not even that big of a Salamence fan, but this new rendition of Mega Salamence has this absolutely threatening presence that no other Pokemon even comes close to matching. It's hidden away in its own special room, almost like a legendary Pokemon, and the second you find it, it hits like a truck. I'd also like to give a massive nod to Roaring Moon EX in the TCG, whose role in the Ancient deck has genuinely made me fall back in love with actually playing the card game. While a lot of the Pokemon on this list will probably change placing over time, I don't think any of them are ever going to be able to beat Roaring Moon for me. And that's the list. If you enjoyed this new kind of scripted video, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want more content from me, make sure to check out these amazing videos on either my left or my right.